Good morning, class. Today we shall be beginning with the second chapter. So this will be the first chapter for us. Alright. Now the name of the chapter is Population Dynamics. Now in this chapter we shall be learning about what is population, the different terms related to population. Alright, and we are also going to learn about why in some places there is high population and in some places there is low population or less population. Alright, okay, now let us begin with the chapter. Now, according to the survey, it states that it took hundreds and thousands of years for the population of the earth to reach 1 billion. Okay, so I repeat, according to the census, it states that the entire population of the earth to reach 1 billion, it took thousands, hundreds and thousands of years. But for the population to increase to 7 billion, it just took 200 years. Okay, so here we can see that the population of the earth has been increasing rapidly, meaning it is increasing at a very high speed. Alright, so what do you mean by population? The first term, I have already sent you a set of definitions which I had asked you to write it down in your copy. So please refer to that. So what do you mean by population? Population means the number of people living in a certain geographical area. So when we say geographical area, it means that suppose this is Kalimpong district and this is Darjeeling district. Alright. So for example, if there are 5 lakh people living in Kalimpong district, it means the population of Kalimpong is 5 lakh. And in Darjeeling, if there are 10 lakh people living, it means that the total population of the geographical area of Darjeeling is 10 lakh. Alright, so when we say a certain geographical area, it means a certain place or certain geographical area which has a particular name, like Darjeeling district, Kalimpong district. Or when we say the population of India or the population of Nepal. Alright, so if we say the population of India is, for example, 15 crore as compared to the population of Nepal, which is just 5 crore. This is just an example. Alright, okay, now next, if you look at the first paragraph, it says the world has many empty spaces, which is given in quotation mark, empty areas or empty spaces as compared to those areas which are crowded. So if you look, so suppose this is the globe, alright, and there are certain areas where people live. Okay, suppose let's say this is the land. Okay, just giving an example. This is the area. Okay, now if this is land and other areas are covered with water. Okay, now you know that 3/4 part of the earth is covered with water. Now in these areas, just because this is land, this area is the area which is covered with land, it does not mean that people live in each and every area. Okay, some people may be living in this area, this part may be empty. Okay, this part may be fully crowded, half part of this area may be crowded and half part may be empty. So when we calculate on a whole, it states that there are more empty areas or empty spaces as compared to spaces where people live. Okay, so there are more spaces or more land on the earth which is empty, where people do not live. as compared to those areas or those land where people live. All right, okay. Now there are several physical and human factors to explain the distribution of population. So it means that there are so many reasons why people are living in some areas and why people are not living in some areas, why some areas are empty where no human beings live, and why some places are crowded or where you find human existence. All right, we will be learning about all the reasons or the factors which affect the population of a place. Now in some places people are living, in some places people are not living, the area is empty. Now in other places people are living but in a small number, and in other places people are living on a very large number. So the population is high in some areas and the population is low or less in some areas. A comparison shall be done. Okay, now what do you mean by distribution of population in the world? It means that the pattern, okay, distribution of population means okay, now in some places there are people living, and in some places, now when you compare this area to this area, the population is very less. Okay, the population is very less as compared to this area. The population is more. So if you look at the pattern of population distribution all over the world, in some places or some areas the population is extremely high, and in some places the population is extremely low. For example, in the river valleys, because of various reasons, like see, in the river valleys water is easily available, and because of the river, now these rivers bring down, what do rivers bring down during the monsoon, especially during the monsoon season? It brings down fertile soil, sediments, all right, and it deposits on the banks of the river in this area. So that is why near the river valleys of Ganga, Yamuna, when we talk in terms of India, in places where there are rivers, so near the river valleys or where water and fertile soil is easily available, there are more number of people living. Now another area where there are more number of people living is in the plain area. All right, is in a plain area, meaning where there is level land. Now in the hilly areas, you know that constructions of roads and constructions of many things like buildings, houses is extremely difficult in comparison to places like the cities, because the cities, if you compare, it is a level land. Okay, construction is extremely easy here. So for example, Kalimpong, which is a hilly area, in comparison to the nearest city, which is Siliguri. Alright, I'll give you examples of those places which you will be able to easily understand, and those places where you have visited, alright, where everyone has visited, so you will be able to understand the chapter properly. Okay, now in places, okay, distribution of, we are talking about distribution of population. Now you know that people living in Kalimpong is also high. Okay, we have many people living in Kalimpong, but when we compare to the number of people or the population, if we compare the population of Siliguri to Kalimpong, then Siliguri is extremely high. Okay, so you can see the distribution is extremely uneven. So the reason here being the land, level land. Okay, construction is extremely easy. Roads can be built anywhere and everywhere because the land is level and it is easy for construction. Whereas in the hilly areas, you have to bring all the raw materials from here to here, and then again you have to cut down hills. Okay, you have to cut down hills, cut down trees. you have to dig up, all right, and that is going to take a very long time and it's going to be expensive also. Okay. Okay, now the definition which I have already given is, what do you mean by the pattern of population distribution? Okay, so the pattern of population distribution means the pattern in which the entire population is distributed. The design, the pattern in which people are distributed all over the world. All right, next we come to density of population. What do you mean by density of population? The definition, if you look at your previous notes, density of population is the number of people living per square kilometer. All right, so per square kilometer, for example, let's take from 6th mile to 7th mile, 7th mile to 8th mile, 8th mile to 9th mile, and 9th mile to 10th mile. Okay, now if you, okay, now you know that 6th mile in comparison to 7th, let's say 7th to 8th, then 8th to 9th, and 9th to 10th, the number of people living per square kilometer. So after every kilometer, we are going to count how many people are living in this square kilometer. Okay, this area. So if you see the number of people living in Kalimpong from 6th mile to 7th mile is less. Okay, let's say around 2000. Let's say 2000. Then again 7th mile to 8th mile, let's say around 4000. And then if you look at these areas, 8th mile, 9th mile and 10th mile, you know that there are now various reasons why there are more number of people living here. Is you have schools. There are so many schools located near these areas. Okay, if we go to 9th and 10th mile, or let's say 10th mile, this is the town area. Okay, so obviously it is going to be crowded. But if you look at those areas between 7th, 8th and 9th mile, you have around 4 to 5 schools. Alright, St. Philomena, St. Joseph Convent, St. Augustine, Rockwell Academy, and after you cross Rockwell Academy, you almost reach town. So in these areas, you may find around 10 to 15,000 people living in these areas. So when we talk about the density of population, we are talking about the number of people living per square kilometer. So per kilometer, how many people are living? From 6th mile to 7th mile, how many people? 7 to 8th mile, the number of people, and similarly 8 to 9 and 9 to 10. So what do you mean by density of population? Density of population means the number of people living per square kilometer. Okay? Okay. Now, there are many reasons why the density of a certain area is high. Okay? Now, in the book, a list of few areas and which countries come under this area is given. So you have to learn the name of the areas and a few countries which come under this area. Okay, now there are some areas. See, when we talk about density, we are going to talk about areas which have high density, then medium density, and then the density is low or extremely less dense. Okay. Okay. Now areas of high density. Now areas of high density have favorable climate. That means, see, for people to live in a certain area, the climate is supposed to be not too hot or not too cold. See, when we talk about extremely high temperature, in areas having extremely high temperature, we are talking about deserts. So do you find people living in the deserts? No. Alright, so when we are talking about areas which have extremely low temperature, we are talking like North Pole, South Pole. So do people live in these areas? people do not live. Why? Because when the temperature is extremely high or extremely low, it means extreme temperature. Alright, so when the climate is extreme, people do not live in those areas. So people like or love to live in those areas where the climate is moderate, meaning not too high or not too hot or not too cold. Okay, so areas of high density have favorable climate, fertile soil for agriculture, level land. Like I give you an example, level land means almost a flat land where construction is extremely easy and movement from one place to another is easy because the roads that we build on a level land is easier to build than those in the hilly areas, and it has a good transport network. So any place which has a pakka road, and the connectivity of the road, you can connect one place to another very easily, like in Siliguri. Alright, the colloquial term that we use is gullies. Alright, now in the gullies also you have pakka roads. So moving from the highway, if you want to, for example, if you want to go from Salugara to, if you want to go to the airport side, you don't have to use the main road. You can go from Salugara, you can take a right turn and then you can take the gullies. Alright, so these connectivity, because of these connectivity, Siliguri has a very high density. The population is also high and the density is also extremely high. Alright, okay, now the four main reasons of high population density are Eastern Asia. So in Asia also, on the eastern side of Asia, we have China, Japan, Korea and Taiwan. Okay, so these areas are extremely or densely populated. The density in these areas is extremely high. Now if you go to the second point, South and Southeast Asia. Okay, now South and Southeast Asia, India falls under this category, under this region. India, Indonesia, Bangladesh and Pakistan. India, Indonesia, Bangladesh and Pakistan. Now Western and Central Europe, that is the third region, under which UK, that is the United Kingdom, France and Germany. So these three countries come under Western and Central Europe. So these are the areas which is highly or densely populated in Western and Central Europe. And the last one being and East and Central North America. Alright, so these are the areas of high density. Next, we come to areas of medium density. Now, areas of medium density are not found in a continuous belt. It means that when we are talking about medium density, continuous belt means the area does not stretch continuously. There may be a breakage. Alright. So this area it may have medium density, then there may be a breakage, then again another area may have medium density. So it is not a continuous belt. So the area of, just like if you look at the areas of high density, those countries that have high density are closely located near each other, but areas having medium density are not located in a continuous belt. It's not close to each other or stuck to each other. Alright, okay, now they are mostly found between the areas of high and low population density. So areas between high and low population density. In between is the medium density areas. Okay, the main regions of medium population density are central parts of the USA, coastal areas of South America, western and northern parts of Africa, South Africa, some parts of Russia, Eastern Europe, Central China and parts of Middle East. And it also includes the plateau regions of India and Southeast Australia. Alright, so among all the regions, among all the names that is given here, you need to mug up at least 4. Alright, you have to keep in mind at least 4. Go through the entire book, but when questions are asked, name few areas Name few areas which fall under or which have medium density. You should be able to know at least minimum of 5 names. Alright, 4 to 5 names. Okay, then areas of low density. Areas of low density, now you must have understood. See, I've already explained high and medium. So now, according to your understanding, you should have already understood what do you mean by areas of low density. So it means that per square kilometer, the number of people living per square kilometer is extremely low. So when we say high density, per square kilometer, the number of people living per square kilometer is extremely high. Okay, more number of people. Medium means less than high and more than less. And when we say low density or less density, the number of people living per square kilometer is extremely less, just around few hundred people living there. Okay, there are 4 regions which have low population density. That is the equatorial region. That means that area on the globe, if you look at the globe, near those areas near the equator. Now, why near the equator? Is because the equatorial region is extremely hot. Alright, because it is nearest, the equator is nearest to the sun. Okay, so the temperature is extremely high. So because of the climatic region, because of hot climatic region, more number of people do not live there. Now second, if you see, is the polar region, that is near the areas near the South Pole and the North Pole, because the temperature is extremely low. It is very, very cold in these regions. There is snowfall throughout the year. That is why human habitat, you will not be able to find more number. You will not be able to find any people in some areas. Okay, and the major mountain ranges with rugged terrain and harsh climate, meaning in those areas which is inaccessible, people cannot reach those areas because the terrain is extremely rugged. There are no roads there. Okay, you have high peaks and people are unable to pass through those peaks in those areas, and mountain is where it's covered with snow throughout the year. These areas have low density or no population at all. Okay, so today we shall be doing till here. In the next class we shall be doing what are the factors that affect the population of a place.